Hey there, groovy ghoulies. In tonight's story, a young girl is floored by a sickening surprise in the room she's renting. Caller 13 calls this one, The Body in My Closet. Alright, caller, you're on the air.
The house was old, but pleasant. A classic two-story suburban home, complete with a wraparound porch, built somewhere between the 50s and the 60s. A bit of a fixer-upper, but Katie didn't mind. How could she? Fresh from high school and starting college in the fall, she was lucky to find a decent place for $300 a month, including water and power. She wiped the sweat from her face and frowned at the pit stains forming on her pink shirt. Why you picked the middle of a heat wave to move, I have no idea, said Leanne, returning from the house. Katie pulled a water bottle from her trunk and tossed it to her. She caught it, then leaned against the back door and chugged the entire bottle. You're gonna make yourself sick, Katie said, pulling a box of books out from the trunk. Uh-huh. Leanne tossed the empty bottle into the car and grabbed a box from the back seat. Let's wrap this up. You owe me a burger and a shake. I'm not doing this for charity. Sure, after I shower and change. Nuh-uh, if I can't get cleaned up, then you can't. We stink in solidarity. Fair enough. They entered the kitchen through the back door. Sitting at the table, watching them move while he ate his oatmeal, was Mr. Porter, the owner of the house. He lived in the downstairs section and rented out the second floor. You don't have a dolly, do you? We've got a hope chest to move and it's pretty heavy, Katie asked him. He took a bite of oatmeal and chewed, looking both girls up and down. They waited in silence for a long time before he said, Out back by the shed. Help yourself. Thank you. Katie nudged Leanne and the two ran up the staircase. Oh my God, he's so creepy, Leanne whispered, closing the bedroom door with her foot and setting her box on Katie's bed. And you're living with him. He's a harmless old man. He's just awkward. Katie placed her box on the floor and stretched. You'd be too if you lived alone. From what I'm told, he never leaves the house. I don't like how he stared at us. He leers. He's a leerer. He's fine. How about that burger? I can't take this heat any longer. We can move the chest when it's cooler out. Katie wrapped her hair into a ponytail, then opened the door. She jumped in alarm. Mr. Porter stood in front of the doorway. You'll be needing these, he said, holding a set of keys. The big ones for the garage, small ones for the back door. He handed her the keys, letting his fingers rest in her palm longer than she was comfortable with. She pulled her hand back. Thank you, Mr. Porter. He smiled and left. The girls watched him descend the stairs and, for the first time, they noticed the metal leg brace on his left leg. With every step, the joints rubbed together, producing a sharp metal scraping sound. Creepy, Leanne said. A little, Katie smiled nervously. They waited until he was downstairs, in his part of the house, before they left for the diner. When they returned, the sun was setting, but the day's heat remained. They still needed to move the hope chest, but Katie wasn't keen on the idea. Her stomach was full and the thing was heavy. She also wanted a shower, but Leanne wouldn't be here to help tomorrow, and she didn't want to leave it outside all night. It was a nice chest. They found the dolly leaning against the back of the shed, tangled in cobwebs and grass. Gross. This looks like more trouble than it's worth, Katie said. She wasn't a fan of spiders. Are you kidding? That chest is huge. Leanne grabbed the handle, ignoring the cobwebs. She wrenched it back and forth until she ripped it free from the weeds, then gave it a quick brush down. There, good as new. Katie had to admit that Leanne was right. Once they loaded the chest onto the dolly, moving it up the stairs and into the closet was easy, despite its weight and size. Afterwards, Leanne said, Hey, I'm gonna bounce. I'll call you tomorrow, okay? She was already halfway out the bedroom door. Yeah, sounds good, Katie said, and gave her a hug. She watched her leave down the stairs, then went to find the box with her towels. Finally, she'd get that shower. Having cleaned up and feeling refreshed, she eyed the boxes littering her room. Maybe she'd unpack a few before bed. Nah, she'd deal with organizing the rest tomorrow. After all, school didn't start for 3 more days. Plenty of time to finish the move. Katie checked the time on her phone. 9:30, bedtime. She plunged it into the wall charger, set it on the nightstand, and then crawled into bed. She struggled to fall asleep, tossing and turning, unable to get comfortable. The silence was too much. She wasn't used to living in a place so quiet. Before she moved to the suburbs, she lived downtown with her folks in an apartment above several small shops, and every night she'd fall asleep to the sounds of the city. She missed the noise. Katie laid on her back, eyes closed, attempting to fall asleep, when the door to her bedroom slowly opened. There was a pause. Then she heard the creak of old floorboards and the metallic groan of Mr. Porter's leg brace. He was in her room, her breath caught in her throat. Afraid to move or open her eyes, she listened to his faint, ragged breathing and the sound of metal against metal as he shuffled further into her room. What did he want? Why was he in her room? She inhaled through her nose and, summoning her courage, she opened her eyes and sat straight up in her bed. "Who's there?" she said. Her voice wavered a little. Nothing. The room was empty. She sat in the darkness, squinting and scanning, looking for something, anything. Was her mind playing tricks on her? Then her heart jumped. She saw the outline of a man standing in her closet. She screamed, reached for the light on her nightstand, and turned it on. When she looked back, the closet was empty. Katie jumped out of her bed and ran to her closet, flinging her hanging clothes aside. But no one was there, just clothes, a couple of unopened boxes, and her hope chest. The chest, she thought, and a sickening feeling overcame her. She pulled the hope chest forward and lifted the lid. Inside was nothing except a bunch of blankets and random junk. "Impossible! I saw him," she said to herself. The adrenaline faded and she dropped to her knees. Her lips trembled and she cried. It was the middle of the night when Leanne opened her door to see Katie, red-eyed and barefoot, standing on her front steps. "Are you absolutely sure it was him?" she asked, handing Katie a cup of tea. The two sat in Leanne's bedroom, a sleeping bag laid out on the floor. "It was his leg brace. I'd know that awful sound anywhere." "Yeah, I can't go back there," said Katie, pulling the mouth of the sleeping bag around her. "Of course not. You can stay here until you find a new place, and when you're ready to go back, I'll go with you." "Are you sure?" "Of course. You kidding?" "Thanks." The next day, the heat wave hit triple digits, a record setter. The two girls spent the day staying cool in a local coffee shop, bumming the Wi-Fi and looking through local listings for apartments and houses with an extra room to rent. After a couple of days of searching, they found Katie an apartment closer to town, pricier than the Porter house, but not quite outside her range. "Whatever, I'll make this work," she thought, and signed the lease. She'd move in immediately. It was late afternoon when the two drove up the gravel driveway of the Porter house, a small trailer on loan from her new landlord hooked to the back of Leanne's car. "You just let me do the talking, okay, honey?" she said. Katie nodded, glad her friend was taking the lead. She dreaded the thought of facing Mr. Porter again. They walked around the back of the house and entered through the kitchen. The first thing they noticed was the air conditioning was off and the place was sweltering, an easy 10 degrees warmer than the outside. Mr. Porter was nowhere to be found. "Maybe he left?" Katie suggested. "If he's smart, he would have. Let's grab your stuff and go," Leanne said, climbing the staircase. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and she wiped it away with her shirt sleeve. This place is a sauna. When they opened the door to the bedroom, the strong, sweet, sickly smell of decay hit them. Leanne ran to the window and threw it open, hanging halfway out, gagging. "What is that?" Katie didn't answer. She still stood in the doorway, frozen by a growing suspicion. She knew that smell. Once, when she was a child, a car hit a raccoon outside her parents' apartment. It laid there for days, baking in the heat. The smell was unforgettable. "The closet," she said. "What?" "He's still in there." And she ran to the closet, throwing out clothes and boxes, their contents spilling into the middle of her room. Leanne watched her friend and realized what she meant. Her hands shot to her mouth. Oh my God! The closet was empty, except for the hope chest. She didn't understand. The smell was definitely coming from inside the closet. "He's in here. He has to be." Then she remembered. That night she moved the hope chest. Grabbing the handles, she dragged it into her room, revealing a thin seam cut across several of the floorboards, warped and wet with sweat, a removable panel in the center of her closet. Katie's hands clawed at the hidden door. Her fingers found purchase, and she yanked the square free. A plume of steam struck her face, the stench overpowering, and she felt her stomach lurch. From the window, Leanne screamed. Laying inside a hidden crawlspace was Mr. Porter, his hands hanging in the air, fingers curved like claws, the nails missing. Katie's whole body trembled in silent horror. She turned the panel over. Deep grooves where he tried to claw his way out ran the length of the wooden square. The tremors grew stronger. She dropped the panel and stumbled backwards onto the bed. Her voice wavered, then gave way to a scream.
Thanks for calling. Well, Mr. Porter made a grave mistake hiding in that closet. I hope Katie gets her deposit back. Corpse stink is impossible to get out of clothes. Trust me, I know. Ugh. Ugh. Well, that's it for the show. If you enjoyed it, give me a like and subscribe for more monthly spooky content. And click that little bell icon so you know when the next show is out. I'll be right here waiting for the next 13th Caller.